This is a Board of Adjustments meeting in Paducah, Kentucky. It is December 28th, 2020, 5:30 p.m. Josh, let's go ahead and get this meeting started by calling roll.
Mr. Baxter, Ms. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Ms. Young,
Here.
Chairman Georgie.
Here. Okay, very good. Thank you, Josh. We'll proceed now with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would in unison, please recite. I pledge allegiance, to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Josh, I'm going to go ahead and move that the reading of the minutes for November 30th meeting be waived and the minutes of said meeting as prepared by staff are approved as written.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and vote.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Chairman Georgie.
Yay. Very good. Moving on, any old business to discuss?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Josh. Moving on to new business, it looks like we have a motion that was published. I move that the Board of Adjustment open the public hearing regarding case VAR 2020-138 for property located at 2470 Lonoke Road at this moment. I further move that this case be removed from the agenda at the request of the petitioner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Little background on this one. The petitioner had filed for a variance for what they call an LTM live teller machine at the new bank in Lonoke. However, they switched the flow of traffic where it will not be encroaching into any setback, so they have pulled the request for a variance.
Thank you, Josh, for the update. Okay, do we need to vote on this?
Yes, whenever you're
Okay.
ready, Mr. Chairman.
Let's proceed.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Ms. Young,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Chairman Georgie.
Aye. Okay, we have one other new business on the schedule today. Ms. Davis?
I move that this board receive and file the application of Fowler and Emily Black for approval of a conditional use permit for voice lessons located at 100 Ridge Avenue in accordance with the parameters submitted by the applicant adjoined to this approval recommendations as Exhibit A on November the 24th, 2020.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Josh, you can take either one of us there.
The petitioners have not joined the meeting, but I can relay what the proposal is, which is one student at a time. Lessons are 30 minutes to an hour long. Students are driven by their parents and dropped off, and students who drive themselves park in the carport. Sometimes the parents do stay in the driveway while the student takes the lessons. No other employees. They generally take place between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. They can be scheduled earlier or later depending on the student's availability. Lessons are never scheduled before 9 a.m. or after 8 p.m. The lessons are to take place in a studio inside the home. Now, from what I understand from the petitioner, she's not having voice lessons at this time, but once restrictions from coronavirus are lifted, she would like to get that going again within those parameters.
Okay, thank you, Josh. The petitioners are not here to speak for their own case or request, and I do see that the staff has an approval or a favorable position on this. I do see that we have some attendants here that are current adjacent neighbors, and I'd like to open the floor for anybody here that is against such a change in the current law.
Okay, I'm Judy Schiller, and my backyard backs up to the Fowler's property where their driveway is, where cars are coming in. And it's usually two at a time because one's picking up and one's letting out. You know, it's not just one student at a time. And that is correct. I understood she was still having virtual lessons, but let's see what else. When the school stopped, she was having lessons from 2 to 6. When the schools went virtually, she started having lessons 10 o'clock in the morning and as late as 8 o'clock at night. Now, if I'm in my yard, I hear the lessons. If I'm in my house, I hear the lessons.
And she's been doing it on the porch.
And yeah, she did it for a certain time. She did them on her patio. She did send a letter saying she was going to do it and that she would be from 10 to 6. And I think most neighbors went along with that because, you know, she did send the letter. It's because of COVID and we're, you know, trying to be safe. And I think most people didn't understand what that would mean. There was a keyboard on and amplified keyboard and students, you know, and it's not singing, it's singing the scales and playing the piano, and it's loud. And it is my understanding that if noise goes beyond your property, it is against the rules of city. It's non-compliant with city ordinances. But the traffic does bother me. The noise does bother me. I can't, it's my backyard, it's my property, my garden. And particularly when they were having them on the patio, it got on my nerves so badly, I just could not stand it. And if I went, I can go inside my sunroom and I can still hear it, you know. And it also bothers me on my patio where I eat my dinner. And I am definitely not in favor of it. I feel that it may be setting a precedence. It's a residential neighborhood. It's, you know, I object. I don't know what else I need to tell you.
Thank you. No, that's plenty of information. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, a lot of times too, when she says one car, a parent will bring a student and they will wait. So they pull, I know, Amy, they have maybe 2 parking spaces right in front of their carport. And then they kind of pull their cars in front of my fence and sit there and wait until the next one comes. So, you know, it causes a traffic problem. with people, you know, they come around the corner and then they have to go around. And it's a very short area. Ridgewood from Buckner to Court is very short. Not much parking is what I'm saying.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Kraft.
Judy, the letter actually stated she would have the lessons from 2 to 6, which,
I'm sorry, that's right.
and you're right, she would start them at 10 a.m. and go till 7:30, 8 o'clock. And when these were outside, it was a noise nuisance. I mean, she has a wonderful voice, but I couldn't listen to Pavarotti sing scales for 15 minutes without it being annoying. So, and I mean, this goes on all day long. And when it was outside, you could hear it inside. I mean, my wife had to wear ear protection just to be able to read the paper without having to be annoyed by it. So, you know, inside you can hear it. If you're outside, maybe Judy can hear it inside. She's closest. But and they have parked in her yard. I've seen it. So I certainly don't want them parking in my grass, and it does cause problems with traffic. You know, people trying to get around the cars that are parked out there. So it's a narrow street, and I mean.
So, so far, and I hear you both that you are not in favor. Then is that correct, Dr. Kraft? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, and we'll go to the Fishers here in just a minute. I just wanted to clarify something. You're not in favor of it because it's been outside, or if it was inside the home, you would still not be in favor of it. Is there a difference?
Well, it's the traffic problem.
It's a traffic. Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you can still hear me. I know Lisa,
Yeah, sure.
his wife Lisa and I have talked about that, and I know Lisa said that she could hear her even when she was giving lessons inside if she were in her bedroom, and that in order to take a nap, you know, one day she had to do earplugs. I didn't introduce his with me. These are my sons who help me take care of my property. You know, and then, I don't know, one time Fowler came and asked me if I would keep my dog inside because Emily was having a virtual lesson in a contest and he didn't want my dog barking. And that does create a little problem, I know, but because cars pull up and there are people he doesn't know and he barks, and then I have to go get him in because basically he's an inside dog. But Fowler and Emily have a dog that barks too, so.
Okay. Okay. We'll go ahead and go to the Fishers. Please state who you are on the call and go ahead and let us know your position and reason.
Hi there. My name is Zach Fisher. I'm a new neighbor in the neighborhood here. John, I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting you yet, but we're right down the road. And Judy, nice to see you. Hate to, you know, meet, I guess, under, you know, these sort of circumstances. We are actually in favor of Emily and Fowler's request. Like I said, we're new to the neighborhood, so we did not get to experience the full extent of the lessons. We were here for, I'd say, a month or so where lessons were taking place outside. It does not bother us. We're directly across the street. We do see the traffic. We hear the folks, the kids coming in and singing and the scales. And, I certainly understand that. But to be honest with you, we thought it was kind of a great use of resources in the time that we're in, and thought she was providing a service to the community. And we're very supportive of it. We did receive the letter. We spoke with them, both Emily and Fowler. They came over and spoke to us and kind of gave us the rundown of what was going on. And like I said, we were very in favor of it.
Okay.
And then we have actually spoke with them about the traffic, because it's, like I said, directly across from our driveway. And we actually have not just a direct driveway into our home, but we have a circle driveway in the front of our home. And we've actually just recently offered that to them to use if need be. So just to take some of that traffic away from the street. So we just, again, we are in support of it. I do understand, the others' concerns, but we have kids and they love it. They'll actually go to the window and sit there and watch and listen to them just because they're enjoying it.
Sure.
So,
can someone tell me what age the students are? Approximately, are they of all ages, or?
They're school age, majority of them.
School age, high school or middle school, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think Emily is also teaching some lessons at Tillman. She goes to Tillman and Paducah Middle School and does some teaching. And I think maybe some of those students are who she has for, the private lessons.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
I think that's my understanding, but my yard is next to this lesson, not across the street. I just want to put that comment in. And I'm not a young person anymore. So maybe I'm not as tolerant as Zach is with 3 young kids. And John too,
I'm old.
he's old. John has a guitar, and I've never seen him, get out in his driveway and play music, his guitar. So you have one time and you got the police call to you, yeah.
Yeah, we tried to have band practice in the garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and there's another little girl across the street that's on a dance team for McCracken County Schools, and I've seen her in her yard, driveway, doing the routines. She has her iPad and she has earbuds, and she's not disturbing anyone.
Sure. And we do see cases like this, and using the home for teaching students, even music. But I think in my tenure, I have not seen where they're singing. It's vocally, so that may be a little different. However, there are some conditions as part of this request. So what's happened here is that the staff, and Josh, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the staff has put some actual, I guess we'll say restrictions on how, if this is to be approved, what that approval would mean. Again, it would be one student at a time. They're dropped off by parents. Understand that there may be a traffic issue, and there is one neighbor that says, "Hey, I'm willing to help there." No other employees are involved. So these are typically one-on-one. Only 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. However, Josh, there is The one thing here is that there's a clause there that says a voice lesson generally take place between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. However, it says they can be scheduled really anytime between 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. So that window is pretty broad. And then the last thing on here is that the lessons are to take place in a studio
Chairman Georgie,
inside the home.
the petitioner is logging in now.
Okay. We'll give her a minute to come in. So can you speak to that, Josh, as far as from your findings? If these, how would any of these, conditions be respected? And because a studio inside a home is not just a room.
Mhm.
I would hope that it is more than a room, that it doesn't allow sound, obviously, to disturb neighbors.
Can I ask a question?
Pardon?
Yes.
Hello, Judy,
Yes.
it's Alberta. So
Yeah.
when she gives the voice lessons in the house, other than the traffic, does it bother you?
Yes.
Oh, it does.
I
Okay.
can hear her if I'm in my yard, and I have a pretty large area of, property that backs up to their driveway. And the room that she's using for a studio is right next to the driveway.
And there's no soundproofing. There's no soundproofing.
No, there's no soundproofing. There is, there are a lot of windows, and it keeps me out of my garden this summer. And, I like to spend time, I like to have my dinner or a glass of wine on my back porch, and John does the same with his pool, and we can hear it.
Okay. Very good. Well, we have the petitioner here online now, so we'd like to allow Emily and her husband, it looks like they have joined, to kind of voice their request and to address. Emily, just to summarize very quickly, the complaints from your neighbors are that it's been loud and it's been a nuisance to their pets, and the traffic can also be a nuisance given their environment there. Sometimes kids are dropped off, sometimes the parent waits, sometimes there's an exchange. While one parent is waiting to pick up their kid, the next one is waiting to drop theirs off. So those are some of the complaints, and we have talked about also the conditions that are listed here for the approval, that being that the lessons are to be taken place in a studio inside the home. And the timing here is really anytime during 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. looks like Monday through Friday, and no other times. So can you shed more light on all of this and tell us your side, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I apologize for our tardiness. I've been giving voice lessons for about 3 years now. And due to the pandemic, obviously began giving voice lessons outside. And while I know that was extremely unusual, knowing that was not going to take place for an extended period of time, but just to give something for my students to do. I'll be honest in that I understand that the traffic can be an issue, and that's certainly something that I'm willing to discuss with each of my students and each of my parent students to alleviate that in some way, to make sure that we are respecting all of our neighbors. I will say that this is the first time in this Zoom meeting where I have heard complaints about noise while giving voice lessons inside of my home. And I wish that would have been brought to my personal attention much sooner than going through all of this. And I'm surprised at that. And I apologize if I haven't been to my neighbors, if I haven't been approachable in that way, but I have not heard personally from any of you specifically about voice lessons in my home being a nuisance with noise.
We call you back in a meeting.
So I wasn't anticipating the noise to be an issue, especially given the fact that I'm inside of my home. I'm willing to go through the process of doing some noise proofing if that is what is desired. This is my livelihood and what I do, and with something inside of my home, I wasn't expecting there to be issues and for it to have such an impact on everybody else's outdoor life in their own spaces. So I don't think I have anything else to add to that. But I am willing to go through some soundproofing if that is, go through soundproofing, and also have candid discussions with my students and their parents to alleviate any parking issues that might arise during voice lesson times. I'm also willing to restrict my voice lessons to a very specific few hours of the day, if that's also what is desired. I want everybody to be happy with this, and I'd like to try and find a middle ground so that I don't have to quit doing my job. So
is this your only job, if I may ask? Is this your sole job for you? Emily, you're on mute. You're still on mute. I'm sorry.
Can you say that one more time? I'm so sorry.
So, is this your sole job for you? The tutoring?
That is my main source of income. Yes.
Okay.
Can I make a quick note? It's not just an idea. If just hypothetically, if it does pass, you were talking about doing some noise abatement. I would recommend if you do decide to pursue that, you might go to the property line like before you do any noise abatement and get an actual reading, and then if you do an improvement, take readings after that. And that, having the documentation on that, if it did pass, at least that would give you a reference point that might be worthwhile. And it might also be good just to see what the noise is at the same point, using the same test instrument when they were outside, so you can just see how much, I don't know, that legally that may not be relevant, but I just think that would probably be something prudent to know, and that would help you a lot too in your soundproofing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, and Patrick, I think they can. I mean, if need be, I think Emily or they can figure out some way. That I don't know. There's apps on smartphones now that can register.
I was just thinking, check it before you do any improvement, because then you can really tell how much of an effect it makes.
Yeah, the only thing though for this board, we don't have a clause in here or a restriction that says it must meet certain decibels. So that's not part of the restrictions that were listed on here. I do have just one more question now that we have Emily on that I wasn't able to. How many students and what are their ages?
I teach approximately 25 students per week, and their ages range from 5th grade through 12th grade, and I have a few adult students that I teach on and off.
Okay.
That's an approximate. I do have some 2nd graders and 3rd graders I might teach at some points, sporadically.
Is it not financially feasible or possible to rent the space instead in an area where this would not be an issue in a neighborhood?
That
part of the reason we bought
part of the reason we purchased this house is because it has this area. When we bought it, it's much more financially feasible to not have to pay rent.
Sure.
I mean, it would it would basically negate the money that I make.
When you say that, what do you mean this house specifically? What's about this house? Does it have a studio?
Well, the room that is adjacent to the room we're in right now, it's it used to be the carport when the house was originally built, and it was
Open air.
An open air carport, and then they filled it in the 70s, I believe, and it's an area on the back of our house that has an outdoor door from our carport, and I think it was kind of a workroom den area for the previous owners, and it was seemingly a perfect location for me to be able to give lessons, because students could enter from an outdoor right into my studio rather than walking through the house.
Okay.
I have one question. Could you contain the lessons from the hours from 1 p.m. till 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday, rather than the possibility of those going from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
Absolutely. I put those times down just as all-encompassing. I have never had a 9 a.m. lesson. I have had some 10:30 in the morning lessons for some of my adult students who are mothers who prefer to have lessons while their kids are not in the house. But yes, absolutely. I'm most certainly open to restricting my lesson times from 1 to 6 p.m. very strictly.
And the other question is, could you restrict them to all be inside, no lessons outside?
There will be no more outdoor lessons at all. This was purely due to the pandemic and was an idea that came about from some other voice teachers that I know. It's not going to happen again.
Well, and with being outside, obviously, I mean, you know, it makes a little bit more sense in your home yard, but it could be at a school yard or public place as well. I suppose, you know, of no charge to you. Of course, it is winter now, so that may not be feasible altogether at all anyway. But okay, well, Josh, I think, and I'm going to open it here. I mean, we can keep asking some more questions here from the board members as needed, but I would feel more comfortable personally to really have that the rules that are part of the Exhibit A to really not include the sentences that can be scheduled earlier or later depending on the student's availability. Lessons are never scheduled before 9 a.m. or after 8 p.m. I think limiting this to somewhat of a more reasonable hour or sort of time in the day, I realize that may limit, you know, the teacher here, but I think it needs to be, considering the complaints, I think that would alleviate potentially the issues that others are seeing inside and the traffic, by it being, you know, not throughout the entire day, but really more a specific hour. And with the help of a neighbor that has spoken in favor, Mr. Fisher, that may, you know, also be some signage that could be, you know, maybe used to say park here if here for music lessons. That might be some of the things that I would personally prefer to see on here that would make this to me a fair request.
I think the other thing would be soundproof in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that, Josh?
I also think she needs to have like 15 minutes between students so one can get out and the other one can come in rather than have them back to back, and tell the parents that not to get there until the time for them to start.
Okay.
Certainly the soundproofing is something I'm willing to do. Separating my voice lessons by 15 minutes and limiting the time I'm giving lessons limits how many students I can have. So that's not, I would.
Could you start earlier? Could you start earlier, Emily? Could you start earlier instead of 1? You start at 11 or 12?
Perhaps maybe for some of my students, most of my students attend school. And so they generally cannot start their lessons until after 2:30 or 3.
Right.
Again, I just want to throw it out there. You know, we have offered, and we have a very large driveway that can accommodate folks. So if there is a need for traffic mitigation, that is out there as well.
I think that would answer one of the questions, the parking. If we could use your drive, they would be willing to use your drive as part of the parking.
Yeah, I think that might help with the parking and the limitation and timing. I think you're going to have a solution there to satisfy what Dr. Dr. Kraft mentioned earlier. And we completely understand. And I think we need to make sure that the neighborhood, you know, maintains its you know, desired living experience, you know, as the neighbors have explained here to the board. I think any one of us here living in Paducah would prefer to have a peaceful environment where we live. So I think some of the issues with loud noises or singing, which are understandable, you know, singing classical music or whatever that may be, could be a nuisance. Could have you know. I suppose I don't know how loud it is. We don't have any numbers, but you know, their pets are disturbed. They're disturbed. I mean, you know, we don't want to see that. I'm sure Mrs. Black doesn't want to see that either. From the sound of it, and she wasn't aware of that. So Josh, since she doesn't have an objection to making some additional changes here to allow her to keep doing this, how would you like to proceed? Are these changes something that we can go ahead and make a note now before we vote?
Yes, what I would do would be to have Alberta reread the motion. Well, there needs to be a motion to amend. We need that seconded and voted on. And the amendment would simply be the original motion. And this is my words. So I need you all on the board to tailor this with a sit after November 24, 2020, with the exception lessons can take place 1 to 6 or whatever time that you all feel like and reasonable. Soundproof the studio and space students out 15 minutes.
May I ask some questions? May I ask questions?
Yes.
Am I on?
You're on.
Yeah. Yes, Kristen, go ahead.
If we have a business in our residence, in our residential area, and we approve that, is it setting a precedence for other businesses to come into our neighborhood?
No, I don't think that would do that at all. This is different. And Josh, you can answer this better, but from our experience here on the board, this is not the first time we've had somebody who has either a church group or they're teaching, they're tutoring in this fashion, and it's understandable. It doesn't set a precedent because the precedent already exists out there for us to do that. It does not change the coding. It does not change, the neighborhood makeup, or if any others come, they would have to go through the board to make their case to do that. It does not change any of the neighborhood conservation laws, rules that are in place.
It was my understanding that Emily is teaching some classes. I know she says that's her major income, but I understood that she does teach some classes at school, at Tillman in middle school.
I teach private voice lessons at Paducah Middle School and Paducah Tillman maybe 3 days a week. I have about 8 students at Paducah Middle and maybe 12 at Paducah Tillman on any given year. So,
and there's no way you can use facilities at the schools or at your church to teach?
No, I can't. Well, I can use the facilities during the school day, but asking to use facilities after school is a problem.
Yeah.
And then I would be at the mercy of a church director or what have you for available facilities for that. So it's just was never feasible. And the reason we moved into this house specifically for a lot of reasons was because we had this availability.
Yes, I know why you bought the house. I meant that was going to be, when you said your studio, I just assumed that'd be where you would play your piano and you and Fowler would practice for your church choir or whatever. But if you start you're still 1 to 6. That's what every day of the week, people coming and going. And if you limit the number of students you have, then you're limiting your income, and you might be just as well off to charge a little more and rent a studio. And Fowler's giving me the ugly look he gave me one night when he got on to me, thinking I called the police on you. Mean look.
Okay.
You are.
All right. Well, we need to proceed. Josh, what I'd like to do is, do we need
Can I make
to?
just a quick? Can I make one real quick statement?
Okay.
I just want to say I am sympathetic about the issue from all sides, from the noise, because I have clinical depression, and I know that sometimes noise, even when I'm not in the winter, it affects me and it bothers me. But then on the other hand, too, as a business owner, especially downtown, then I kind of see the other side of it, and it is difficult. It's a difficult decision to make for everyone, and to try to find a lot of the decisions we make are real cut and dry, but a lot of times, sometimes too, it's like a balancing to try to find the balance. So, but anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say.
Chairman Georgie, you had asked about how to amend this motion.
Yeah.
Earlier, and if the board would like, the way to do that would be for Ms. Davis to make an motion to amend her motion on the floor with the.
I can amend it and read it back if needed, Josh.
Yeah.
I just need to know if I can do that, and if we need to end her current motion or leave it and just do a new motion.
Well, it'd be to amend the motion on the floor.
Okay.
There'd be a motion to amend, and it would be read how the end result, basically, and then we would vote on that as the amended motion, and then the second one would be to reread it in its entirety, like you all want it. And vote on that.
Let me hold on just a second, because you do have this written. Adjoined to this approval recommendation is Exhibit A. So the motion itself, really all we're changing is Exhibit A.
Mm-hmm.
We're not changing the motion. We're changing the Exhibit A, which should be part of attached to this motion. Is that not correct?
Exhibit A is the answers that we had received from the petitioner as far as the hours and students and things like that.
I got you. Okay.
The other applicable parts would still be, could still be approved, but you can change whatever conditions that you need to and attach to it,
okay.
Which would be those 3 other things if the board would like.
I do have a question here, and Josh, you may be the best person to answer, but in regards to Mr. Fisher's offer, would that be added to the motion in terms can we request that no street parking, should we just say no street parking is permissible? And just leave it at that and leave it up to Mrs. Black, work it out with whoever neighbor in the future that may be, because Mr. Fisher's here today, he may be gone, a month from now. And so is that a fair point to make, not to have this? Well, they either park in her driveway or, they're in her or in just not on the street at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or any other neighbors have not agreed.
So I have a question. How long have you been given these voice lessons?
I started in the fall of 2017.
So did you get a permit, a business permit then to do this?
Not yet. I had only maybe five to 10 students that I started seeing very sporadically at that point. It really didn't start ramping up until this past year and a half or so.
For which you did get a business.
For which I do have a business license, yes.
Okay, and in that business license, you have a home list. Your home is listed as the address for the business. Is that correct?
I do, yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay. All right, Josh. I think I'm going to allow here the board members see if they have any other questions. So,
I just thought I might make a quick
okay.
something I thought about the street parking. If you put a restriction on there not being any street parking, you couldn't really bind it back to the person giving the lessons. It would be the people driving. It seems like I don't see.
Well,
how you would have it. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
like if someone had a bit, like if we granted a business, say in Lower Town, and you said, well, they only had 5 parking places, but what if someone pulls up? You can't stop them from parking anywhere, really, because that's not the business owner. You can only, I don't know. It's just, I don't know it.
I think. Yes, and I think the difference here is that we're also saying one student at a time, and typically one student is not going to come in 3 vehicles. If there's a vehicle that will even park there. So I think that putting the limitation of one student with limitation and the burden on Emily and, her being the teacher to tell her students and their parents, no parking on the street, which I think she can do. I think this would work differently from, say, opening an actual business where you have 3 parking spots, but they'll take over 4 and 5 for somebody else.
Right.
Well, all this makes it hard on Emily and, and her.
It does. It does. But I think if we put all this together, I think it will put some burden on her to make sure the others are not. But it makes this more passable in our eyes.
Can we not table this till we put it together? I think we're jumping the gun to make everybody happy.
I think there's one other question I have. Since Mr. Fisher is offering additional parking, I think there should be stated additional parking is available from a neighbor.
Who has provided consent, actually.
Right.
But if that
so I think that should be noted.
Yes. Okay. I have made my notes, Josh. I can try to read this back to you, or you can email it to me if you already have notes, and I'll read that.
Modern technology. Okay, so for everybody, what I had wrote down is after Exhibit A on November 24th, 2020, with the exception, the lessons are 1 to 6, soundproof the studio, and the students are to be spaced out 15 minutes.
And I would like to remove the sentence that says, the part that says they can be scheduled earlier or later depending on the student's availability and the rest of that. So
I would think, just my opinion, Chairman Jargy, that if you set that time limit where it says with the exception of, and then set your time limit there, I think that would abridge that part of the conditions, the parameters.
With the exception.
I still kind of feel that we need to say something about the parking. Additional parking is available if needed from a neighbor.
But if that neighbor moves,
Emily, can I ask you, would the additional parking be needed? I mean, I don't know what your current situation with parking is, but is your current driveway full?
No, I don't believe that additional parking would ever be needed.
Okay.
If we adjust I think we're gonna have plenty of parking, especially if I make it known to all of my students and parents who are coming that they cannot park in the street and
Right.
they must use. I think some of my parents were always a little hesitant to park behind our cars or something like that, and I just never made that super clear to them.
Gotcha.
When dropping off, but
So that may not be. I mean, we could add it. So they don't park, no street parking. They can figure it out. Between you and them, they can figure that out. But there should be no street parking, and 15-minute spacing between the students, soundproofing. I think at this point, keeping it from 1 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Chairman, could they put up signs, or Emily put up signs that says no parking here at the corner or something on the street?
Josh,
The Board of Adjustment does have the power to approve signage for home occupations that is a 1 square foot sign.
I don't know that it works.
But as far as a no parking or something like that, those are.
I mean, we can't say what she wants. She can put whatever she wants on there. She wants to put that's her sign. It's a 1 foot sign. She can put whatever. We can't say what she can put on there. But if she says something, no parking on the street, really any neighbors put that no parking on the street on their yard, I think that would be, they'll take care of that. But I don't know if it's necessary, considering what I'm hearing. I don't think this is. I understand the neighbor's concern of the traffic. However, with the limitations we have here, that would be manageable with what Emily knows today that she didn't know, before.
If Emily just tells her students to park in her yard instead of Judy's, I think that would.
Correct. And she may not have ever discussed parking with them before. So that's where I'm, at least from what I'm gathering. So I think we're kind of getting tangled up on things that are easily resolved between communication between her and the parents. I think. I don't know if there needs to be, again, no street parking. Is we can put that in here. She understands that. She'll take it from there. Josh, I'm having trouble reading your handwritings. With the exception, can you read that for me one more time, and I'll think I'll memorize it.
With the exception, lessons. It should say with the exception, lessons should take place 1 to 6.
Mm-hmm. Okay, lessons from 1 to 6.
Studio and space students out 15 minutes.
And no street parking. Okay, I got it. I can read that. All right, so we're amending. Let's go ahead and proceed. We'll proceed with an amendment of the current motion. The motion will read, I move that this board receive and file the application of Fowler and Emily Black for approval of a conditional use permit for voice lessons located at 100 Ridgewood Avenue in accordance with parameters submitted by the applicant. Adjoined to this approval recommendation as Exhibit A on November 24, 2020, with the exception lessons be held only from 1 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The studio is soundproofed, so sound does not carry over to a neighbor. And the students are spaced out between lessons within 15 minutes. And the lessons are to take place inside the studio at all times. No street parking is permitted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, let's go ahead and move to a vote, Josh. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, now for clarification for everybody, this is the vote to amend the motion. Okay. Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Ms. Young,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Chairman Jersey.
Aye.
Now what would need to happen is that motion would need to be reread in its entirety as the motion on the floor.
Okay, I can read that again. I move this board receive and file, the application of Fowler and Emily Black for approval of a conditional use permit for voice lessons located at 100 Ridgewood Avenue in accordance with parameters submitted by the applicant, adjoined to this applicant recommendations as Exhibit A on November 24, 2020, with the exception, the lessons being held from 1 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday only, soundproofing the studio, making the students spend 15 minutes apart between lessons, no street parking allowed. The lessons must take place inside the studio, inside the home at all times. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carol. Do we need to have any more discussion from the board members?
No.
Okay. All right, Josh, proceed with the vote.
Ms. Young,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Abstain.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Chairman Jersey.
Aye. Okay. Then the motion has passed. Josh, do we have any other business we need to bring before the board?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Have a nice day.
Thanks. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Aaron. Bye-bye.